And we are back for Klay Day. All things Klay Thompson. Okay, maybe not all things, but there'll be enough Klay Thompson to get us moving. I am John Devine. With me, as always, is Anthony Chang. And this is another episode of Heat Check. Anything happened since we last spoke at all? You know of anything?
Clay for sure. Now,
Okay.
for late August, that's pretty newsworthy, right? Usually, this is a quiet time in the league, quiet time for the Heat. But to get a future Hall of Famer on the roster, he's not in his prime anymore. But that's definitely something for this time of year.
Well, let's talk about it. First off, we'll talk. Klay Thompson joins the Heat. Klay Thompson in his, 14th season?
14th season, yeah.
Lost a couple to injury. Since the injury, he used to be an elite defender. I wouldn't say he is one, but one thing he can do and still do is knock down threes. So let's talk about his fit, first of all, on the team. I heard somebody, I think it was Wes Goldberg, and there was this myth about the Heat don't have shooters, and people are going back and forth, and they're saying, "Hey, look at this guy's percentage. Look at this guy's percentage." But one thing Klay Thompson will provide is we know about the three-point shooting percentage, but it's the threat of you have to follow him everywhere, all the way to the parking lot. Maybe you don't follow a Davion Mitchell the same way, but if Klay Thompson is there, you have to be aware of him. So first of all, let's talk about how he fits in, and let's talk about how he fits in with Giannis and Bam, and go from there. So you tell me what you know. You're the expert.
Yeah, that's the big key right there. He demands the respect of every opposing defense, right? I mean, he has the fourth most threes in NBA history. Last year, he still shot a very solid 38%. It wasn't like elite, but 30%, almost 8-9 attempts a game. That's still really good. So he's going to help space the floor for Giannis and Bam. That's going to be his role in this team. It's pretty clear. Is he the player he was, 8 years ago? No, obviously not. I mean, he averaged a career low in points last year, career low in field goal percentage. He really doesn't do much inside the three-point line anymore. As far as getting to the rim, like you said, he's not an elite defender anymore. He made all NBA defense 1 year in his career. He's not that anymore. But what he can do is still take and make a lot of threes, and he needs that around this new leading duo of Bam and Giannis. So it's a very defined role. It's something they needed. He's going to help space the floor. He's immediately the guy who's going to demand the most respect as far as the shooters on the roster. I would say, if you go between Wiggins, Davion, Simone Fontecchio, Bobby Portis, Tim Hardaway Jr., like Klay Thompson, again, he is one of the best to ever do it as far as three-point shooters. So he's going to help. He's going to help tremendously. Again, I don't want to overstate it. He's not an all-star anymore. But I know this has been said by many already, the Ray Allen comparison when he came in 2012 during the Big Three era. Think of it kind of like that. A guy who's going to come in, going to get hot some nights, maybe going to score 20 points here and there, a guy you can depend on in clutch moments. He's not going to score, average 25 a night, but he is going to give you what you need, and that's going to be spacing the floor.
I was going to go to his defense, but we'll come back to that because you were talking about other people talking. And the person who's been speaking loud and long more than anybody else is probably Draymond Green. And he's saying, all you expecting, Klay from 2017, you need to just stop. I don't think anybody's expecting.
I don't think anybody's doing. Yeah, I don't. That was weird, right? That was almost like I don't want to say it's a diss because I think they're friends, but that was almost like, why is he saying that, right? I don't know if anybody's expecting 2017 Klay like you're alluding to.
Because let's be honest, he gave up a ton of money to come, and I'm gonna let you talk contract. If he was Klay of 2017, do you think you're getting him for 2 years at $13 million a year?
No.
So that's ridiculous. We're filming this as of Thursday. We put a story online comparing Klay when he came in his age 36 season with Ray Allen in his age 36 season. And the comparisons they hold up pretty well and what they're looking for. Now, the other thing is it's a differently constructed team, obviously, because these are two guys going downhill in Giannis and Bam versus, guys who are all over the court. Yes, LeBron went downhill, but it was a varied offensive skill set. But if you're looking in today's NBA is a little bit different in how offense is structured 13 years ago. Talk about this no-screen offense that Spo uses, and will that work with the team that you see constructed?
Yeah, because Giannis is a guy who doesn't need a screen, right? He's going to get past his defender. You're going to probably have to send multiple defenders at him when he gets past his initial defender and gets into the paint. And that's where Klay comes in. Klay is going to be on the perimeter, driving kick. We saw a lot of that last year, spread the floor, 5 out, even with Bam 5 out. So we're going to see that a lot again. And sometimes Klay could be a screener. We've seen the inverted screens, right? Where Giannis is a ball handler or Bam is a ball handler and Klay is a screener. Good luck trying to double Giannis or blitz Giannis off a pick and roll, and then Klay is open for a three. So there's a lot of different ways you can use Klay, and that's what Eric Spoelstra is best at. He's going to find ways to maximize his skill set, even at this point of his career. So I would, and even Eric Spoelstra, when we spoke with him after the Giannis press conference last month, kind of alluded to, I don't know if it's going to be the exact same offense they used last year, where it was the fewest screens in the league, fastest pace, but it's probably going to be similar because that fits Giannis's strengths, right? A guy who, if you get him in the open court, he's unstoppable, and he doesn't need a screen, right? He can do it in ISO, and he's going to force multiple defenders to come his way, and he can spray out to Tim Hardaway Jr., Bobby Portis, Andrew Wiggins, Klay Thompson, even Bam, right? We've seen Bam start to incorporate more of the three into his game. So I would think that offense, there'll be some of that this season for sure.
And if we look at his defense, like we said, it slipped because, let's be honest, you're 36 years old. Of course it slipped. And, Achilles injury and a knee injury. But looking at the construction of that team, defense is not an issue for them. If you put him on the floor with Giannis, Bam, Davion Mitchell Williams. Why do I keep calling his dad? See, that's how old I am. But you put Andrew Wiggins up there, and you put those four on the floor with him. That's a lot of defense on a good day. If he is the so-called weakest link on defense, you're doing just fine because there are a lot of teams that would kill to have a defense like that.
Yeah, for sure. And that was the argument, with LeBron, right? Of, wow, this is a good fit for him. He can do what he does offensively. He doesn't have to be, take on one of the best assignments or one of the toughest assignments on the defensive end. He has the guys who can cover for him on the back end with Bam and Giannis, and David Mitchell on the perimeter, and Andrew Wiggins on the perimeter. And that's the same for Klay. And I would say Klay, look, again, he's not the defender he used to be. He always had a torn Achilles, torn ACL, like you referenced there a few years ago. That's really, back-to-back years with those injuries. That's tough to come back from. But when you're an all-NBA defensive player, like caliber player, you're a smart defender, right? And that doesn't go away. So he's going to probably be a pretty good team defender. He's going to do most of the right things. Is he going to be able to stay in front of guys as much as he used to? No. But he's not. I don't think he's going to be a complete liability out there. Just because you don't just go from being, a really, really respectable perimeter defender to being complete cone out there. So I think he'll be okay, right? He's not, and again, like you said, he's not going to be relied on to be a top tier defender on this team. This team already has enough of them. But I think he'll be good enough that he'll be able to hold up for the most part on that end, especially if they need him late in games.
After the signing, your colleague Barry Jackson wrote a story talking about players in their mid to late 30s at the end of their career and what the Heat's been able to get out of them. Obviously, starting with Ray Allen because that's the most common comparison. But there were a lot of others there too. And looking to see how much tread could be left on his tires. And they always say shooting is like one of the last things to go. If you can shoot, you can shoot. And looking at it, the fit, I see why the comparison continues. But what kind of contribution do you think he'll be able to make overall for the 2 years deal?
I think he's going to start this season. I mean, I do. I mean, who's going to be their starting shooting guard, right? I mean, it's either Pella, Tim Hardaway Jr., or Klay Thompson. You need shooting in that lineup with Giannis and Bam, right? And Davion. Klay is the best shooter of that group. Pella is really not known as a shooter at this point of his career. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a good shooter, but he's been more of a sixth man in his career. Klay, is the guy who's been a starter. He's played a starting role for most of his playing career. So I would think Klay's going to start. And to go answer your question about what contribution he'll make, the fact that he's going to be a starter making under $6 million, that's really good value, right? And he's going to be relied on a lot. Is he going to play 30 minutes a game? Probably not, because that just wouldn't be smart for a guy who's going to be 37 in a few months. But he's going to play, a lot of significant minutes, a lot of important minutes. He's going to be relied on late in games. He's probably going to average the most 3-point attempts on the team. So that right there tells you he's going to be a pretty important player for this team this upcoming season.
And I think you just alluded to it. The title starter is probably, especially in the NBA, probably overused or probably has added importance. I think some of it is obviously mental, and if you're dealing with a veteran or a player of Klay's caliber and he prefers to start, but it's key minutes, it's who finishes, and Spo of all people, and we've seen this through the years, he's going to ride combinations and hands at different. It's going to be the ebb and flow of the season, which means there may be times we come back in this podcast and go, why aren't they playing this person more? Look, Pella's really fit, and it's also, we always talk about chemistry, but chemistry, we're playing the result. These are the 5 that are playing well. This grouping seems to play well at this time of year. And Spo's going to ride that. He's going to ride that hot hand. And he's going to milk everything he can out of it. And, we're even talking, like, guys, and you've seen this through the years with Jovic. It's like, oh, look, he's playing now. He's playing 15, he's playing 20, 30 minutes a game. They're playing him. They're riding a big lineup. Then you don't see him for 2 months. Yeah. It happens. And I think with a 36-year-old guard, he's also playing the long game. Their goal is not to play the play-in. Their goal is to ride deep in the playoffs. And that means resting him a little bit so his legs are under him and he can hit that shot when we're getting to the first round, second round, potentially Eastern Conference Finals. That's what they're going to do. You're also dealing with trying to get Pelle Larsson. Okay, where's he fit in? Because if this is a 2-year deal, I know they play for today, but you still want to see growth from your younger guys to see what they can do later on. You're also talking Andrew Wiggins. Is Andrew Wiggins part of this? I know, and please talk about the contract construction for him, and where does he fit in long term? Or is it a long term, or is it just a year or two? So there's so many things that make this fascinating, and a large part of it is this contract of Klay Thompson.
Yeah, it is, and I mean, 2 years, $13.5 million, I think it was. With a player option the second year, you would think Klay, considering he took less money to come here, will exercise that player option unless things go terribly wrong this year in Miami and he just doesn't like it. But you would think he'll be back. This will be a 2-year window with Klay at least. By the way, Ray Allen played 2 years with the Heat, his final 2 years of his career. So there's another comparison. Could Klay spend the final 2 years of his career with the Heat? But yeah, I do think, like, with Giannis, you really have like a 4-year to 5-year window here, right? And this is the first version of this team. It's going to look different next year, even with Klay probably still on the roster, even with Wiggins. Wiggins, he's obviously going to start the year with the Heat, but he has a player option. Actually, he's going to start the year with the Heat. Next year has a $16.5 million salary, which is very tradable in today's NBA, and then he has a player option in 2029. So, yes, he's under contract with the Heat next year, but it's a very tradable contract if they need to move it to make a significant addition. My point is, there's gonna be different versions, just like there were with the Big Three teams. That first year was the worst version of that Big Three team, right? They lost to the Mavericks in the NBA Finals. They got Shane Battier the next year. They ended up getting Ray Allen. They got Birdman eventually. You continue to build, and I think right now the hope is this is the worst version of this roster. It's pretty good, but they want to continue adding to it, and that means Andrew Wiggins could be traded eventually in the next few months or next offseason for if they want to make an upgrade. So right now, this is the team. Klay is probably going to be here for 2 years at the very least, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, it's a very good contract for the Heat. And the fact that he gave up $4 million from his salary with the Mavericks in the buyout to come to the Heat. Like, his salary this year with the Heat plus what he's getting from Dallas in the buyout is still $4 million less than what he would have gotten from Dallas if he did just stayed in Dallas. So he gave up money to come to Miami. He obviously wanted to be here. And he gave up enough for the Heat to have just enough to fill both open roster spots with minimum contracts before the season. We thought they were going to start with 14 players. They might still start with 14 players instead of 15, but they can, if they want to, go up to 15 players to start the season and still stay under the first apron, which the hard kept at. So that's big.
So what two players are you hearing? I know one is Nick Richards. We keep hearing.
Yeah.
Your buddy Omar Kelly. He's advocating Ben Simmons, but let's not get carried away.
I don't think so. I don't think so. No.
I can't see a stranger fit in the history
Also,
of
yeah,
but they did
I don't know if
sign Greg Oden.
they need shooters, right? I don't know if Ben Simmons fits that.
Even if he could shoot, we wouldn't know because he wouldn't shoot. So let's talk about what candidates you see, and then more importantly, what do they need? I mean, obviously, you're not going to get everything you need with the 14th and 15th person on your roster, but let's do that as a separate question. One, who do you think who are candidates for those two spots? And two, even after those spots, what do you think that they need as a team?
Yeah, Nick Richards is obviously a very popular name. He's been working out in the facility. There's been no contract offer yet, but he's wearing
He's a center, yes.
He's a center. He's a big man, 6'10", 6'11", good rebounder, above average rebounder, decent touch around the basket, not a shot blocker. So he's not a big who's going to block a lot of shots. I think he's blocked over average over one block a game, like once in his career. So he's really not a shot blocker, but he can rebound. And they need depth, right? To go to your second question, like center rotation, it's Bam, Bobby Portis, Vlad Golden. Like if Bobby Portis is hurt, who's the backup center? Nikola Jovic, Giannis. I mean, Giannis can play center, I guess, but he wants to play as a power forward, right? So he really lacks some center depth there. And God forbid if Bam is hurt, I don't know what they do. And I'm not saying Nick Richards is going to be the solution, but you need some bodies, right? You need a guy who he's played in the NBA now. He's played a role, last year. I'm looking to see how many games did he play. He played 48 games last year, made 6 starts, averaged 5 rebounds a game, 6 points. So he's at least somebody you can throw out there to play a few minutes as a stopgap if you need him as a depth player. So he's one that would make sense. Even if it's a non-guaranteed, it could be a non-guaranteed deal. Make him earn the contract, right? In training camp and in the preseason. And in the 15th spot, they don't have to fill that spot. If there's not a name out there that catches their attention, they could just wait until the season starts and maybe someone shakes free, or maybe you wait till teams make preseason cuts, right? And later, right before the regular season, see who becomes a free agent. Maybe you fill it then. But there is one familiar face who's still available that, again, he's not a guy who's going to fix everything you need, but he would help as a depth piece, Gabe Vincent. He's still unsigned. He was just their starting point guard 3 years ago in the NBA Finals, which is crazy. He's unsigned. He's a guy, maybe he takes a non-guaranteed. I know he would like to be in Miami. I know him and Bam are still very close. I know he liked it, liked playing for the Heat. You walk into the final game last season against the Hawks, the final regular season game. At that point, Gabe Vincent was a member of the Hawks. You walk into the locker room for interviews. Gabe Vincent is sitting in Bam Adebayo's locker, waiting for Bam to surprise him. He is someone that he think very highly of. But I know he was looking for mid-level money, and the Heat we're not going to give it to him in free agency. But he's still available, and maybe he does take a non-guaranteed deal to prove that he deserves to be on the roster. So that's a name to watch out for. We'll see if something like that happens. But other than that, it's tough. I mean, James Wiseman has been working out down here, former top pick, but has had some bad injury luck. Kind of been a disappointment, right? Considering he was drafted so high. But other than that, yeah, it's tough. There's not much available. But yeah, I think Nick Richards for sure is a name to watch out for. Gabe Vincent is another one as a possibility. But I would not be surprised if they still open up the season maybe with 14 and leave that 15 spot open to see who becomes available later on.
And they still have those guys who are on the back and forth contracts for the G League that they could always put in there.
Yeah.
Trey Donaldson,
Vlad Golden.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they still have one open two-way spot too. So which they'll probably fill. They'll probably give, bring in 3 or 4 Exhibit 10 guys to training camp in the preseason, hold the competition, and then maybe give that final two-way spot to whoever looks best in the preseason.
Okay, so that goes back to the second question. And I know we mock Ben Simmons and we know he's not a fit here. But the one thing that he would supply that I think they do need is playmaking. And I think that's the question that's sitting there on the team. I'm going to answer the question I posed for you since you kind of skirted around it, what they need. I think a playmaker is still what we need. That's not to disparage Davion Mitchell at all. But if you're looking, your two best playmakers may be your two big men. And that's not usually the way that works. So how do you think they kind of create the playmaking? Do you think it's because of mismatches and double teams? Or how do you jumpstart this offense?
Yeah, playmaking is definitely needed. There's no doubt, right? That was the whole thought process of going after LeBron. But yeah, now there's no really option out there to fill that need. So it's going to have to be Giannis and Bam, right? Giannis has become a better passer, over the course of his career. Bam is obviously an above-average passer for his position. Davion was pretty good, assisted turnover last year. It's not like he's the best playmaker, but he doesn't make too many mistakes. So you're going to have to rely on those guys. Yeah, you're going to have to rely on those guys to play bigger roles in that area. And probably going to have to rely on Giannis and Bam to do more playmaking than maybe you would like. But that's just this, the way this roster is structured right now.
There were reports that the Heat originally was reluctant to get rid of Kaz Yakuchonis. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, that was probably part of the reason, because he did have a creative flair for, creating things offensively. But that's neither here nor there. Now, there is one pie in the sky rumor I've seen, and obviously none of us think this is going to happen. And that would be Kyrie, if they could get Kyrie, and if that means that I don't know how the money would work. The only person who knows how the money would work in the Heat front office is not here on this podcast right now. But that was always the pie in the sky thing, because let's be honest, Kyrie's 34, and that doesn't fit with the timeline of the Dallas Mavericks right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a name, obviously, if you can get Kyrie, that would fix a lot of your problems, right? If he can stay healthy. But that's not the case at the moment, right? We'll see later on if that becomes an option. But yeah, that's back to my point a few minutes ago of, like, they're going to continue to try to upgrade this roster, right? This is the team right now. Obviously they're going to probably add a few more guys here maybe in the coming hours, coming days. But there are going to be more upgrades as the years go on and they continue to make this roster better.
So we look, what is what it is. What it is what it is. But we still see some room for flexibility. They still have a little bit of money, which before we were worried about them being hard capped and they would be able to do zero. We have a little bit of time before training camp starts. What do you think, or what do you see? You're an insider. You deal with the Heat all the time. What are these players doing in preparation before camp starts?
Yeah, well, Pelle Larsson, Nikola Jovic, and Simone Fontecchio are playing qualifying games right now for their national team. So there's that, right? And I know Pelle Larsson right now is actually playing as we record. He had 20 points in 21 minutes so far, so he's playing pretty well. And those guys, have been really active. They played earlier this offseason in qualifying games. They're playing now in qualifying games during this window with their national teams. We've seen Giannis working out in Greece, right? And usually the trend in the NBA is after Labor Day, the gyms get a lot more full. Like, more guys start coming back into their markets, start working out with the team, preparing for camp. So we're approaching that time, right? 2 weeks away, maybe, a week and a half away until Labor Day. So really things are going to start picking up here soon. But yeah, training camp today's August 27th. First day of training camp is September 29th. A month away. You have a month. It's going to fly by with football season starting and all that. So buckle up. It's going to be fun.
We'll get your rest now.
Yeah.
But just because they're resting doesn't mean Anthony will and Barry will.
No.
Those guys are always going to be on the clock. They have to be. I have to pay them. So they will be around. But while they're there, please look at MiamiHerald.com. You can look on X. You can look everywhere. You can look everywhere, because we will have a presence there. And if you want to find all things Heat, please drop by to MiamiHerald.com. Like I said, watch for your boy Anthony Chang. Watch for Barry Jackson. We will do our best to give every angle that we can. And we will look for ones. We will dig up ones. Look, obviously, I always laugh at Draymond Green. I'm laughing at Draymond talking about the comparison to Ray Allen. But that conversation has been going on for a few days now. Draymond Green did not drop this nugget out of the sky. These guys talk. They're plugged in. We are happy to have them. And we ask you to continue to stay with us and keep it locked on right here. And until next time, I am John Devine. This is Anthony Chang. And we'll see you on the other side.